Hello dear viewers, it is once again time for the news here on Rwanda Television with me, Serish Nhore. I hope you're having a great weekend. Let us begin with the headlines. More than 100 members of Unity Club in Rwanda have met in their fourth retreat that was chaired by the First Lady of Rwanda, Her Excellency Jeannette Kagame, who is the founder of the organization. Rwandans have committed themselves to planting 63 million trees by May next year as part of the country's efforts to protect the environment. Now the details. Thank you again for taking the time to join us. I'll be sitting in for Olive Nete for this edition. Now, more than 100 members of the club Unity, that is of the Unity Club in Haramuri, have met in their fourth retreat that was chaired by the First Lady of Rwanda, Her Excellency Jeannette Kagame, who is the founder of the organization. The theme of this year's retreat has focused on making a culture out of the organization's commitment of leadership through setting good examples. Taking place at the Intare Conference Arena, the retreat included panel discussions on how leaders should conduct themselves regardless of whether or not they are still officials and what it means to be a good example for others. The retreat also featured the welcoming of new members to Unity Club. Both the General Assembly and retreat of the club have come before the 16th forum that will take place on Sunday that will focus on the importance of the Ndi Umunyarwanda program. Now, residents of Bugesera district in the Eastern Province say that the planting of trees will favor the increase of rainfall, hence sufficient agricultural produce. The Minister of Local Government has urged citizens to preserve them as trees are beneficial primarily for them. Prince Manzi with the details.
Bugesera district is one of the districts of the Eastern Province that are often affected by droughts, as well as some parts in the Southern Province. In this district, there was an inauguration of the tree plantation term at the national level when the planted included indigenous trees that are resistant to the climate change. The Director General of the Rwanda Forestry Authority, Dr. Concorde Nsengumuremyi, emphasizes that essential is fostering the plantation of forests in this region to curb effects resulting in their lack. It resulted in our preserving the forests as they were looking for our land to cultivate on, looking for firewood, and all these result into having plain lands that affects even cultivation. That is why this year we want to take care of this region for demonstrating the importance of a tree in recovering life in a certain region. The Rwanda country representative of the International Union for Conservation of Nature, Kaori Suda, demonstrates that it is important to make citizens part of the program as they are critical in trees preservation.
Because we know that the local communities, they are game changers in sustainable development, nature-based solutions, sustainable agriculture, and agroforestry. So for us, as IUCN, it's very important to put community as the center of restoration work. Local communities at the early planning, implementation, and the evaluation stage, all stage. So it's like a bottom-up approach and empower local community as the center for restoration work in Rwanda.
The Minister of Local Government, Jean-Claude Musabyimana, who officiated the inauguration of the tree plantation term, urged citizens to plant trees to curb soil erosion, imbalance diet, as well as to preserve them as they are beneficial primarily to them. Primarily, to understand the importance of trees. Trees are life. They make our world as good as we want it. They provide for us fresh air. They hold the soil for not eroding. They provide food, but they as well give us income. So such a thing, it is to be preserved. Everyone should take it as his responsibility. It is expected that across the country, until May next year, trees to be planted will be 63 million, including forests, trees mixed with crops, fruits and decorative trees. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Now, foreigners have joined Rwandans in Umuganda activities and noted that the country, that is Rwanda, has set a good example for their countries in terms of efforts towards development. Prince Manzi continues.
After the Umuganda community work that the delegation participated in at the Kimirongo sector in Kigali city, the delegation was explained on the benefits of Umuganda community work to Rwandans. They include emphasizing unity, development, and sharing ideas towards solving their own problems. The delegation emphasized on how this activity is to be introduced to their countries. From here, they proceeded to Nyanza Genocide Memorial in Kicukiro district. Upon explanation on the history and on how the international community turned a blind eye on the genocide that was being perpetrated against the Tutsi until the intervention of the RPA soldiers that put an end to it, these foreigners made various points of view.
When we went to the Memorial Park, one thing I learned was that no one should trust anybody. In case the military men had not left those people to perish by then, we wouldn't have just get 100 people surviving. We might have get more than that.
When you come to these kind of places and you hear the history of the genocide, then you cannot even imagine how the human kind could be that get that low and kill each other, being brothers, speaking even the same languages, just because of some ideologies or some because hate that was being grown between them by other forces.
Their journey proceeded to Mageragere, where resides an industry that recycles plastic objects that are still found across the country, especially in industries, after their usage stop policy. The delegate said that there's a lot that their countries can learn from Rwanda.
Our young people from the whole Africa should understand that those people try to manipulate us to perpetuate hunger and create war. So we are the ones who are losing. Because them from Europe, they don't forget their story. And they don't like when someone comes in their country trying to change the story. They want them to think in the same way. They want to develop their country. This is what we want. We want all Africa be now in peace like Rwanda, be developed like Rwanda. So the model of Rwanda, for me, it's a great model that should be shared by activists, by influencers, by media, African media, because we are the ones to put our story up.
So far, I've gotten a lot of ideas, and I'm going to look at how to implement it in my country to help my country also look like Rwanda, because my country wants a country, Ghana, like a Rwanda.
Most of our colleagues that are here, I told you more than 25 countries, most of them says, wow, I really like my country to be like Rwanda now. The way Rwanda is being ruled.
This delegation of 40 people from 27 countries across the world has been in Rwanda for the past 6 days, participating in the UNDP Global Plastics Community of Practice. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
All across the country, following the Umuganda activities, elections were held to fill vacant leadership positions at the local level. Prince Manzi once more.
In the end of October, Umuganda community work, citizens reworked on damaged roads heavily due to the rainfall. Citizens also planted trees aiming at curbing soil erosion. They tackle how these trees will contribute to their development. Here at school, our children will feed on the mangoes and avocados, provide fresh air in their break time. These trees will also help in curbing soil erosion. They support in curbing soil erosion, and as you know, we did not used to have these types of trees. Local administrators stress on supporting in preservation of such initiatives, as some require heavy budget for sustainability.
Ibiti mu karere ka Rusizi ntabwo bihagije, yacyaba bihagije ntitwara kwakoze cyane gikorwa cy'umugano gutera ibiti.
Trees in Rusizi district are insufficient. That is why we planned on this program of planting trees to increase their number, and they will be beneficial in both providing income and feeding, as they include fruits and other crops.
Hari ibigurishwa bikavamo amafaranga mu musaruro umva ari ukwihaza mu mutungo ndetse no kwihazwa mu biribwa.
After the Umuganda community work, citizens participated in the elections of filling gaps in village administrations and elected the advisory council at the village level. That was unusual. The elected stress on their contribution in betterment of village administrations. Most of them are elected but not participate in community activities, so we will be participating in them and represent what the village in development activities.
Turashyiramo imbaraga cyane bitewe nuko ubundi buyobozi nanone bwisumbuye buri.
We are going to work hard as we are supported with our superiors. We will make sure to solve issues on our level to prevent cases to require higher levels. We will stress on this. The presidential decree of 60th February 2023 regarding the sector Seland village established the village council and determined its powers. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Prince, for those reports. Education professionals say that there should be a special curriculum and training for teachers of children with mental disabilities such as Down syndrome and autism, because these children with special needs also need quality education for a better future despite their disabilities. Olive Nete with more.
Down syndrome is a genetic disorder where an individual has a full or partial extra copy of chromosome 21. Down syndrome occurs in all people of all races, though older women have an increased chance of having a child with Down syndrome, which means women of 35 years old and above. Parents of children with this disability say that it was hard to accept it at first.
Namenye yuko arwaye ngiye gukingiza urukingo rw'ukwezi n'igice.
I got to know about my child's disability when I went for vaccination program. At that time, my child was 1 month and a half. When they injected the vaccine, the child didn't cry, and the healthcare provider asked me if my child was normal. After that question, I was a bit confused because I had given birth to 2 other normal children, and then she advised me to seek advanced medical care because my child has a problem.
Ndamubaza arambwira ngo nushaka utangira uvuzi.
I got to know about my child's disability at 9 months old when I went for vaccination. The child could barely grow and get additional weight. Then after an assessment, the doctors told me that my child has Down syndrome. It was really hard to accept such news. Autism, also referred to as autism spectrum disorder, is a diverse group of conditions related to the development of the brain. Children with this disability are characterized by some degree of difficulty with social interaction and communication. Other characteristics are atypical patterns of activities and behaviors. Characteristics of autism may be detected in early childhood, but autism is often not diagnosed until much later. Nyiransaimana Odette says that she found out that her child had autism when the child was 5 years old. My child has 7 years. We got to know about the illness 2 years ago. We enrolled him in school as other kids, but at school he would do his own stuff contrary to what the teacher instructs him to do. And the principal called me and told me that my child has a disability, that I should take him to a different school. I was shocked and saddened by such news, but little by little I got used to it. Health professionals say that all these disabilities have other co-occurring medical conditions. They emphasize that it is important that these children receive special attention because if not treated on time, it can be a threat to the health of these individuals. Parents say that it is hard to take care of children with such disabilities. They request support from the government regarding special education for these children. Sometimes we as parents, we expect good results from children, but sadly, it is hard to expect that from our children. However, we also have a request to the government. We need them to enforce the education system of these children having such disabilities, not only coming to school and be occupied by teachers, or only getting to know how to shape their behaviors and attitude. We also request that these children can be assisted in terms of improving their talents because some of them has talents that can be nurtured and it can benefit them as well as their families. There are some schools established for children with Down syndrome as well as autism. However, these schools are still few and most of them are very expensive. Tones Tategekimana is a teacher of children with these disabilities at the HVP Gatagara Center in Gikondo. He says that although they provide basic education to these children, there is need for improved training for teachers to provide quality education.
Mu mbogamizi harimo ibikoresho bidahagije
Some of the challenges we face include materials that are still few. Other challenges that we teachers also need trainings so as that we can provide quality education to these children, because these children are in need of special care. The kind of care they need requires intensive trainings so that we can help them according to their needs.
Gufasha umwana wihariye natwe tuba dukeneye amahugurwa mu buryo bwihariye kugira ngo tubafashe neza.
Nezirya Jean-Pierre, the director of HVP Gatagara Gikondo branch, an institution that cares for children with different disabilities, points out that there should be a special curriculum to help these children.
We truly appreciate what the government of Rwanda has done by making this school a public school by the agreements made, because most of other schools are private schools that are expensive due to the materials and the kind of education they provide. However, we still have some needs. For example, there's a curriculum that was designed but we have not received it yet, and also teachers have not been trained about it yet.
The issue of providing special education for people with special needs was also discussed recently in the parliament. Honorable Peter Claver Gwaka emphasizes that these children should be assisted so that they can also receive quality education.
Other children who do not have disabilities study without any cost for the education. The fact that these children cannot get access to education is a problem, and I think the government should revise that and assist parents so that these children can study. Children with mental disability need special care. It is not only autism, but all other children as well with mental disabilities need what we call special education.
The estimated incidence of Down syndrome is between 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 1,100 live births worldwide. Each year, approximately 3,000 to 5,000 children are born with this chromosome disorder. According to the World Health Organization, about 1 in 100 children has autism. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Now, students at HVP Gatagara appreciate the role of the government of Rwanda in championing inclusive and quality education in the country. Adams Kwizera with more on that.
Ilakoze Sylvia, a 14-year girl with disabilities, is one of the students who studies at the HPV Gatagara Secondary School in Nyanza district. For her to continue her secondary education seems to be a fantasy.
Before, I felt that I was the only one with a disability, to the point that I never had any hope to study. And due to this, I thought there was no schools for people with disabilities.
Nizimana Jean-Felix, who is in third year of high school, testifies that isolation and exclusivity he faced in primary schools has affected him mentally.
Especially middle places,
The society never accepts us or give us time to show up what we get. It was so hard for me to the extent that I was about to drop out from school. In order to implement the government's program of quality and inclusive education, currently this HPV Gatagara started to receive some other students who don't have disabilities.
I'm not bothered to be sitting in the same class with people who have disabilities, since we support each other in everything.
HPV Gatagara also has an early childhood development that helps some of the children who seek medical care in this center. Despite the fact that much has been achieved in the development of educational and medical facilities at the HPV Gatagara, Director General of this center, Kizito Misago, finds that there are still some needs to be addressed in order to improve this program of quality and inclusive education.
Haracyari imbogamizi, ibikoresho biracyari bikeya, abakozi nabo
There are some challenges regarding to inadequate equipments and labor. Plus to that, there are some buildings that are already in bad states. For the fact that for us, we try to handle some medical issues for those who comes to seek it. Plus the education we provide to them. All this facilitates them to find themselves in the society. In the recent population census conducted in 2022 by the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda revealed that there are 391,775 people with disabilities in Rwanda out of a total population of 13.24 million. Adam Squizera, RTV News.
Healthcare professionals say there is a need for cooperation between the councils that regulate medical professions and health institutions that provide various services so as to stop those who carry out such services without licenses so that better and quality service provision is assured. This was reiterated during the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Rwanda Allied Health Professions Council. Olive Nete with the details.
The issue of some healthcare providers who operate without having licenses to provide these services has been identified as a barrier to providing quality healthcare services to the public. Some of them work illegally to some private hospitals, which may affect the health of the people who seek such services. These professions have to be licensed by the Rwanda Allied Health Professions Council to carry out these services. The council has been operating for 10 years. On Saturday, the council celebrated 10 years since its establishment. Retired Major Kasherebuka Jean Damascene, the president of the Rwanda Allied Health Professions Council, points out that they are content of the achievements made throughout all these 10 years, which includes assisting these healthcare providers provide quality healthcare services. He also emphasizes that there is need for close collaboration between councils and different health institutions to prohibit unlicensed caregivers to carry out these services, since it can be a great threat to patients. There are some who still practice such professions, and yet they did not study it. We have to work on preventing such acts. It is our responsibility as the council. We can also stop them because it is a threat to citizens. Another thing is that health institutions are to use professionals that have licenses, but we still have an issue of employers who use unlicensed employees. Dr. Menelas Nyeshimana, the head of Department of Health Workforce Development at the Ministry of Health, points out that the existence of a body that establishes regulations under which these professionals operate helps the public to receive quality and reliable medical services. The first benefit to citizens is the quality of service. In all 26 disciplines in the Council, they get quality services. When all these services are provided by the Council, citizens acquire these services on a high standard and professionally, and the beneficiaries feel satisfied with the service. The Rwanda Allied Health Professions Council started its operations in 2013. It regulates more than 20 professions, and it has so far provided licenses to more than 6,000 people who work in medical-related fields. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Now, in today's health segment, we delve further into the world of the autism spectrum disorder, a complex and diverse neurodevelopmental condition that affects millions of individuals worldwide. Dr. Edgar Kalimba, a senior pediatrician at King Faisal Hospital, shares with us the realities of the disorder.
Parents will ask, what can I do? Is there some dietary intervention? Are there some supplements I can take? But to date, we don't have any strong scientific evidence that really tells us that specific interventions actually help to prevent autism.
You also touched on comorbidities that associate with autism, but if you can go deep down and explain if there are other co-occurring medical conditions associated with autism.
So the frequent comorbidities or associated medical conditions that we see are again mostly neurological, or neuropsychological. So for example, epilepsy, or seizure disorders, that happens quite frequently, and that can be managed, that can be treated with medicine. I mentioned already attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Again, that can be very disruptive even in a child who is not autistic, but it's very common in autism. Then we see things like anxiety, depression, the psychiatric or neuropsychiatric elements happening commonly. And then there are other things that are not necessarily neurological but tend to occur more frequently with autism, like obesity. And then other things might be maybe side effects from drugs depending on what medication you're using, how long you're using them.
So we've seen that autism cannot be prevented, but it can be managed, if I may say so. How can we help these individuals or these children with autism? How can parents assist their children with autism? And are there any therapies or other interventions that parents can do to help their children with autism?
So of course, based on the fact that this is a lifelong condition, it's very important to empower the family or the caretakers. And that's why really at the hallmark of early interventions is therapy or the different therapies that can help to increase the functionality and the aptitude, the capacity of the child. And we have different types of therapies. You've heard, for example, about occupational therapy, which helps with the fine motor, how a child develops their kinetic function, how they interact with different things. So occupational therapy is important. Speech therapy, because obviously they have speech and language dysfunction, so that's also important. Then there's other things that are part of the special education, because these kids, most of them would not fit in mainstream education. They need a special class, they need special attention, they need teachers that are trained to handle these kids and to help them to learn even within their limitations. So the involvement of these different rehabilitation and therapies, but having the family at the center and empowering the parents and the caretakers is really the way that these kids are managed.
Since autism is a lifelong condition that the individual has to live with, doesn't it affect life expectancy?
It actually does. It does, because when you look at data from high-income countries, individuals with autism have like 20 to 30 year difference less. So their life expectancy would be about 40 years. And this is because of either comorbids or comorbid conditions. Sometimes lifelong medication causes other health issues, but also because of their dysfunction, they have higher risk, for example, of accidents, poisoning, overdose. So putting all this together is what makes the lifespan shorter than the other individuals. We don't have data in third world countries, at least I'm not aware of long-term data, but in high-income countries, it's about 40 years.
Is there any advice you would like to give to parents who have children with autism, or those who are planning to conceive?
So I think in general, you've noticed that, for example, the Ministry of Health is encouraging more and more people to do health checks. So that's exactly the same with pediatrics. We encourage, and we're beginning to see more and more parents doing that. They don't only bring the kids when they're sick, they bring them also for well baby visits. They are very important, because we don't only look at physical development in terms of how much weight have they gained, how tall are they, what is the head circumference. That is the physical or anthropometric measurements, the physical development. but we also look at the developmental milestones, which can be motor, sitting, crawling, walking, blah, blah, but which can also be fine motor, social, and speech, and all these things. So we always pick up these things early. Sometimes we pick up things before parents even notice. They might say, well, it's a child who is probably just quiet because one of the parents is quiet, whereas it could be because they're just not interactive because of the disability. So health checks at regular intervals, we usually do 3 to 4 within the first year, and we do at least 2 within the second year. And those would usually give you an idea of a presence of a concern or not. Yeah, so I think that would be one of the advice to give.
That is all the time we have for this edition. So let me say goodbye, but I'll see you soon again. Thank you for joining us.